Mexico City Beach, Florida, but they grew up in Alabama with my family. My grandparents have lived in Florida, well, I guess not anymore, but they lived in Florida since before I was born. They lived there for 20 years, and that's where my parents got married, at their beach house. And I grew up going there. We stopped going there, I guess, in 8th grade, because that's when the hurricane hit.
What hurricane was it?
Hurricane Michael.
This was the height of Hurricane Michael, the epicenter of a monster Category 4 storm. Mexico Beach took a direct hit. Once a popular tourist destination, it is now obliterated.
It was only supposed to be a Category 3 hurricane, and they originally were going to shelter in place. And then it came into the Gulf of Mexico and got ramped up to a Cat 5. And the eye wall hit the town that was right next to them, so pretty much got destroyed. After it got bumped up to a Cat 5, we ended up basically yelling at them over the phone, telling them to come evacuate. So I've always been around the beach and been exposed to hurricanes. This wasn't the first time that my grandparents have evacuated and come and stayed with us in Georgia. Because, I mean, the area we're right by Atlanta, so we don't really get affected by hurricanes. We might get a little bit of wind and rain, but nothing of the magnitude of like living on the coast. And I think that that's kind of the same up here. I mean, nobody would have expected East Tennessee State in the mountains to, get floods from a hurricane. It just doesn't make sense.
It's heartbreaking to see, and now we've seen it with our own eyes. There have been thousands of Tennesseans praying for the Tennesseans here in Upper East Tennessee. And there has been a great deal of effort put in making sure that help is on the way and assistance gets here.
It's something like we've never seen in this part of the state. Who would think that a hurricane would do this much damage in East Tennessee?
So the day before I went and volunteered was the day that Hurricane Helene hit the area. And I went to bed that night not thinking like too much of like what was going to happen, just because we were just expected to get wind and rain. And then I woke up and checked my phone on social media and saw like town's just gone. Then the next day, me and a few of my sorority sisters and some other volunteers found a home of someone in need. They were both professors at Tulsa University, I think it was, and they were drama professors. And they lived right on the Nolichucky River, I believe it was, in Greenville, Tennessee, and their home was basically destroyed. Our task of the day was just to get the basement completely cleared out because it was completely submerged in water. Originally what was happening is people were just like getting clothes and stuff and throwing them out of the basement window and shoveling water and so much water and ripping tile out and ripping the walls out. It probably took us about 4.5 hours, but we completely cleared the basement out of about 30 years of drama clothes and props and backgrounds and wigs and personal items all the way down to the studs. The only thing that was left were like the supporting beams and some of the hardwood flooring. I remember I was the person who was like not inside of the basement, but like outside on the back porch, scooping piles of like clothes and mud just like down the hill because it was unsalvageable. We tried to pick out like certain items that could be cleaned up or like photos that weren't broken. And I remember like the only things that I could find that weren't broken were like clay mugs. And I remember I found one singular Christmas ornament that wasn't broken. And so we had like a little pile on one table that was like things that could be cleaned up and kept. And then another pile was just like sentimental things that were destroyed, but they'll probably still want them. And then the rest of the stuff we threw it away. Their front yard was a whole pile of anything you could think of. Furniture, rugs, clothes, just everything. I remember before we left, the homeowner gave me a hug. He gave all of us a hug, and he said, "Thank you so much. Because of this, the contractor, because we got the basement cleared out, the contractor said that the home could be salvaged. And if we hadn't have moved all of the wet stuff out and gotten it off of the wood and the foundation, then it would have just had to been bulldozed." It's been very devastating just to see all of the destruction, and I personally feel that the government is not doing enough for the communities around us. I think that there's been a lack of federal assistance, and just knowing that it's going to take not 5 years, not 10 years, it's probably going to take upwards of 15 years for them to even be close to where they were before. Like, I know Asheville is just, the infrastructure was just totally uprooted, and it's going to be a very long process, and I think that it's going to be something that, like, my future children hear about, like, in history books and stuff, and that's crazy to think that, like, that's something that I lived through. I think personally for me, I don't necessarily think it changed my perspective on volunteering. I think I've always been a very service-oriented person. I just think that it changed my perspective on thinking that things like this could never happen to me. Obviously, with my grandparents and them experience a hurricane, that was probably the closest thing to having like a natural disaster happen to my immediate family. But I was so young, there wasn't really an opportunity for me to go out and, you know, volunteer myself in my time. I was still in middle school. I was playing soccer. I was, you know, trying to be a normal kid and maintain relationships with my grandparents. But I think now it was very rewarding to be able to like have the opportunity to finally, like the volunteering that I wish I would have done when I was in middle school, I was able to kind of like fulfill that, complete that part of me that kind of felt incomplete.